without further ado, let me introduce my friend and the next congressman for the 12th District, Vince Coakley.
Thank you. It's a real honor and privilege to be here. This is a great way to end the day. This has been an extraordinary day. I've connected with some wonderful people, and I am very encouraged here at the end of the day just to look back and all the relationships that have been started, the relationships that have been strengthened, the vision that has been cast, and we're hoping to continue to do that same thing this evening. I don't really need to introduce myself to most of you, I assume, because of my familiarity through television, through radio and media in this area. And I can tell you that over the years, really the entirety of my broadcasting career, there's always been an inward conflict for me, because here I am delivering the news, and of course you're supposed to deliver the news unbiased and that sort of thing, and we all know that's not always true. You know, that's no big secret in here, I'm sure. As it relates to local news, it's not so much political bias as it is on the national news media. We all know that. But for me, it wasn't so much that. It wasn't a matter of bias. It was just a matter of relevance. I mean, here we are on one of these days. What's the big news story today? You know, it's Snowmageddon. I've got friends still in the TV news business, and we all joke about it, that, oh, they're going to be scaring people today about the weather, how terrible it's going to be. And I certainly hope that it's not. But what we don't do very well in the mainstream news media, and the local media especially, is cover the things that really matter to people. Think about it, for instance. I want you to think back to that time. What was the average price of gasoline a few years ago? What, $1.84? When's the last time you paid $1.84 for gasoline? I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money out of our pockets added up over a period of several years, isn't it? How many of you are comfortable with that? How many of you feel good after pulling away from the gas pump? I doubt it, very seriously. Is this necessary? I don't think so. A lot of this is based on policies from our own government, and it's unfortunate. But one of the areas, energy policy. And you know what's really frustrating about it? The people hurt the most by these policies? The poor. And the ones most likely to vote for the people who are putting these policies in place. What else do we see? Unemployment. Boy, that's not a pretty picture, is it? Now, there are some games that are being played with this information about the employment picture. The unemployment rate is going down. Isn't that wonderful, right? Well, that's not the whole story. How many of you are following the labor participation rate? What's happened to that? It's been going down. Fewer and fewer people, millions of people have left the workforce. What's increasing? The role of people on food stamps. It's not good. The number of people whose unemployment benefits have run out and are resorting to filing for disability because that's the only thing they can do to keep food on the table. We can do better than that.
That's right.
Don't you believe that? Happen to believe the most important conversation that we need to have now is about immigration reform or about unemployment benefits. Why don't we talk about getting this economy going so it can start generating jobs for the American people?
All right.
Jobs! That's what we need. I was talking about this earlier today, the fact, and unfortunately this is not widely reported, but it's reality. What we are experiencing now, that's being called a recovery, is actually not as good as the previous president's recession. Did you know that? But the unfortunate thing is, we as a country are being conditioned to accept things that are not acceptable. It's not acceptable to have lost millions of jobs and not have a path forward to recover those jobs. This is the kind of thing I've been watching, and it grieves me. It grieves me not just because these are facts and figures. I know some people. I know people who are struggling to make ends meet, to put food on the table. I know people in that place. who've experienced this over a period of a year, 2 years. Where is their hope? What's their future in finding jobs and opportunities? And a good part of the problem is problems that are created in Washington, D.C. And I'm talking about regulations. I'm talking about micromanagement. You know, one of the intriguing things that's been taking place is a shift of wealth. You know, we hear all of this talk about income inequality. You want to talk about what causes income inequality? Government policy creates income inequality. I believe America is a land of opportunity. It's a land of opportunity. But the problem is, when you have people who believe they know better than everybody else and that they can micromanage people's lives out of Washington, D.C., that's why we are in trouble. I've been watching this. I've been watching this year after year after year as a television news journalist and then as a radio talk show host talking about these things. But you know what? There comes a point where you get tired. You get tired of preaching to the choir. This is the point I've reached just in the past few months. Tired of preaching to the choir. I'm blessed to have a wonderful wife, Debbie. I've been married to for 21 years. She's sitting back there. My 4 children. My 4 children, Jerry, Andrew, Brandon, and Giselle. I want them to have a bright future. Not just my children. You know, if you read the Constitution, the very first part of the Constitution doesn't just talk about right now. It talks about our posterity. It's our posterity. What are we leaving as a posterity to our children? Mountains of debt. And this is why I came to the point where I realized I need to step up to the plate to be a messenger. To be a messenger for freedom. Because that was the idea behind what we put together. Freedom, a strong economy, and jobs. The wellspring is freedom. That creates the opportunity for a strong economy and jobs. I'm not running on a Democrat agenda. I'm not running on a Republican agenda. I'm running on a freedom agenda. What compels me in all of this is really love. My heart breaks when I see what's going on to my country. My heart breaks when I see what's happening to individual people. And my heart breaks not only because of what's happening to them. It's kind of like this. You see somebody, you ever known somebody who has a substance abuse problem? And a person with a substance abuse problem, like alcoholism, what do they medicate themselves with?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. What's that going to do for their problem? I want you to know, folks, we've got people who have been fed poisonous policies that have not only created their problems, but it's magnified their problems. I dare to say that tonight, that I love these people enough that I want to share a message of hope, of what liberty can deliver for them. And it's not just me. This is a season where all hands have to be on deck. We've got to step out of our comfort zones. You know, I love spending time with freedom-minded people, whether they are Tea Partiers or libertarians, and we can have some great discussions, and we can have some fun together, and we can enjoy people of like mind. But I want to tell you today, part of what I'm doing is making a declaration. I'm done with just sitting around having little holy huddles, talking about liberty principles. I want to begin sharing those with people who need them the most. It's for all these reasons that I've made the decision that now is the time for me to step up to the plate, to become a candidate to represent North Carolina's 12th district in Washington. And again, what's my platform? My platform's freedom. one word, one of my favorite candidates running for office now, he talks about sovereignty. You know what? We are sovereign individuals. Our Constitution's about individuals. It's not about groups. See, government leaders, let me rephrase that. Politicians like to use language to divide people. They like to divide the sexes. They like to divide people racially. You know what? I'm not thinking in those terms. I'm thinking of individuals. Amen. Mm-hmm. Right. I want to care about individuals. And I want to respect their sovereignty as human beings. Their sovereignty means they have choices. There's a responsibility attached to that too, because the way forward is really not through politics. The way forward is for us to begin exercising our sovereignty by being responsible citizens, by being an informed electorate. That's what it means. But it goes beyond that. It means having healthy families and building healthy neighborhoods and communities. I'm telling you today, folks, the days of us driving into our garages and closing those garage doors and focusing on me and mine, those are over. If we care about this republic of this United States of America, those days have to end. We've got to begin engaging our neighbors, our friends, our relatives, sharing, loving, relating. That's what I believe. Because when you have healthy citizens, you have healthy communities, then we begin addressing the most pressing issues that we face in our society. The solutions for what ails the 12th district and anywhere else in this country are right here in this district. See, I believe the solutions are with us. They're not hundreds of miles up the road in Washington, D.C. The solutions are right here. The most important work will be right here in our communities. And then we dictate to Washington rather than let Washington dictate to us. Think about the people who talk about power to the people. And you know what? Many times they're not empowering people. They're empowering Washington. Yeah. You know what empowering Washington looks like? I had Peter Schweitzer on my show recently. He wrote a book called Extortion. You ought to read that book. You want to be brokenhearted? Read that book about the games being played in Washington, D.C. You know what they do? They're basically they're extorting. They're extorting businesses and people for money. For what? For their own power. So that's the game they're running in Washington, D.C. One of the stories he told me that just sent chills down my spine. He said, Peter Schweitzer said, Vince, there's so much wealth in Washington, D.C. flowing over from government programs that they're actually, he described a luxury car dealership that is disappointed that they're not making as much money through financing because people are coming in and buying luxury cars with cash. That's what you're empowering with your money and your votes by sending power to Washington, D.C. The whole point I want to deliver to the 12th district is this. It's about empowering you. Empowering you, the citizen. And the only way to do that is for power from Washington to flow back here. Big government and freedom do not go together. So my platform is this. It's freedom. It's rebuilding our lives, exercising our sovereignty, responsibility, rebuilding our families, our neighborhoods, and communities on a grassroots level, and then we take control of Washington. We the people, all of us, red and yellow, black and white, everybody taking control. So it's about we the people and not about they, the government. I'm Vince Coakley, and I approve that message. I'm willing to entertain questions, comments, discussion, anything. Yes, sir.
Vince, it's been rumored that tonight, during his State of the Union address, Obama is going to tell the nation that he will use executive privilege to force action in Washington. Would you like to speak to that?
What can I say to that? I think we all recognize the importance of the separation of powers. We all recognize that we've got three branches of government. One of my concerns, and I want to say this as graciously as I possibly can, is that we don't have people standing up in a way that they should for constitutional power. And my hope is, if that indeed happens and there's more of this, that there are members of Congress that will not hesitate to go down to the Supreme Court and immediately challenge. And I hope that we will have a Supreme Court that has the courage and the fidelities of the Constitution to immediately take action to make sure that these things are put in their proper place. It disturbs me. And to the point you raised, just a couple of years ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, when there were some so-called recess appointments that took place, that when the Senate was not in recess. I mean, think about this. I've thought about this a number of times. All you have to do is wait until the Senate's in recess. Why would you not wait?
They don't care.
That's the problem. And the truth of the matter is, if he doesn't care, and the American people don't care, and the problem is that too many of the American people don't know enough to care. And it's time that we help them understand what's happening. Because it's not just, I don't care what letters behind the name, whether it's Democrat or Republican. That's an abuse of power. And that cannot be allowed to stand under any presidency. I didn't appreciate it under President Bush, and I don't appreciate it under this one either. Yes?
I'm doing some social media today for you, and there's a question today. It says, well, there's some things, but I'll tell you this part. What does Vince plan? Do you plan to try and create income equality?
Create income. See, and one of the things I want to be very careful about when I answer a question like that, what I want to do is to make sure that there is equality of opportunity. Here's what destroys equality of opportunity. Socialism on one end and crony capitalism on the other end. I don't think just because someone has proximity to a member of Congress that they ought to have an advantage. I don't believe that.
Here.
Anyone else? Yes?
What are your actual first duties as a newly elected congressman? Will be to vote on a speaker. Would you comment on Speaker Boehner's recent comments that it was the Republicans' fault for the government shutdown in October?
I would just say that I think, I would hope, let me just put it this way, I would hope that we have leadership that rises to the surface, that has a vision and a purpose that is constitutionally sound, and courage of conviction. That's what I'm hoping for. I don't want to talk so much about what's happened in the past, but I will say this, I just hope. And let me just say this, a lot of that's in your hands this year, in the people that you vote for. You may not be able to vote for me in the 12th, but I hope you ask this question. You know, what kind of person are you going to vote for in the next session of the House? That's a very, very important question. We've got to have a message in which we're going to stand with people who stand for what's right. And if we're shooting people who are standing up, let me give you an example of why this is important. By the way, do you know who first presented civil rights legislation for approval? Republican Party. Did they win the first time around? Now think about this. We've got people who don't want to fight what they call losing battles. See, what they did with civil rights legislation is they came and they said, all right, we need to fight for this because it's right. Because it's right, they lose. What do? Do they start blaming people and start setting up the circular firing squad? They said, no, we're gonna try to find more people and get this thing passed. And you know what? Years later, we got civil rights legislation passed. Why? because they had courage of conviction and they were willing to go back and fight the battle another day. That's the kind of courage we need. I'll take one or two more. We'll move on here. Valley.
You mentioned about expanding the number of people who are engaged and informed. How do you suggest going about doing that?
The only way to do that, that's in your hands. That's in the hands of everyone here. That's what I meant by engaging people in neighborhoods and communities relationally. See, I'll just give an example. You guys know what my former job was. What was it?
Anchor channel.
Okay.
3 to 5, 3 to 6.
Let me ask you a question.
Broadcasting.
How many TV news cameras do you see here this evening? Now, I'm not saying this is somebody who's upset. I'm saying this as somebody who speaks from experience. Local news does a poor job of covering government. I know that from experience. When I was in Kentucky, every single station in Lexington had a reporter assigned to Frankfurt to cover the state government. All 3 stations. So, what's my point? Am I trying to slam the media? No. My point is, you guys have more control now. See, with social media, as Brooke was describing here, that doesn't matter anymore, does it? Mm-hmm. Because we can reach all kinds of people, and we're not dependent on these television stations, radio stations, or newspapers to deliver our message. In fact, nobody can deliver our message better than us. And that's what I'm calling on all of us to do. One more, and we'll call it an evening and celebrate. Brooke.
Just want to ask again, I asked earlier, but if you would give us a little bit of a rundown of the game plan. What's next? How can we jump in and work?
The game plan. The game plan is the things that I've just been describing. We're going to be putting some things up on the website. Important. A reminder from my wonderful wife back there. CoakleyForCongress.com. Please connect with it. There's also a Coakley for Congress page on Facebook. Connect with it, like it. We're going to be putting up some resources along the way to help people get involved in the campaign, opportunities for you to volunteer, and we're going to do some very unique things. And the goal, see, when I talk about helping to empower people, it starts with this campaign. Because what I hope you'll be able to do is take these ideas and run with them. And so, as you share with them, I'll just give you a very, very practical example of what you can do that would be very, very effective. One of my favorite productions, I have a friend named C.O. Bryant. He's done a documentary called Runaway Slave. This streams free on Netflix right now. Why not invite some of your neighborhood friends, no matter what their opinion on politics might be, invite them over to watch the video with you. Have some popcorn and have a discussion. That's something very simple you can do. These are the kinds of things on a grassroots level. See, I think this is about relationship and connecting. So I'm going to do a lot of that. I'm going to be knocking on doors. I'm going to be meeting people. But at the same time, more important than that, I hope this is multiplied by people like you being engaged in your community and doing the same thing. So, thank you very much, and we look forward to it.